selbst drauf geblättert, oder?
Ja.
Das ist animiert.
Kann man da ja überall machen lassen. Also ich weiß, man kann sogar überall die Jacken sticken lassen. Aus North Face in...
Naja, ist ja eigentlich komisch, oder? Na, was ist doch von China besetzt?
Ja, das ist in Frankreich.
Ja.
Das ist dann die Anerkennung durch die...
Das ist schon...
Das ist gleich in Taiwan.
Tibet.
Taiwan ist aber richtig eigenständig, ohne China.
Soweit ich weiß, die Bundeswehr nicht. Das ist spricht doch keiner drüber.
Da gibt es nochmal was.
Deswegen reagieren nicht immer die Chinesen, sondern die Russen. Wo sie da waren.
Ministro, buongiorno, una battuta?
Facciamo
Dopo in ambasciata.
Facciamo in
va bene.
ambasciata. just 6 days ago, but he's not new to international relations and diplomacy. Minister Wadefull took office at a time marked by profound global challenges, geopolitical tensions, shifting alliances, and the urgent need for new multilateral cooperation. With a long-standing commitment to international dialogue, security, and partnerships, he brings to his role not only political experience, but also a clear sense of strategic vision. Minister Wadefull, we are very excited to hear your welcome address. Please welcome him on the stage.
Thank you so much. And I'm honored, together with my team, to welcome you all today here at the very start of my tenure, less than a week after taking office as Germany's foreign minister. A warm welcome to all of you here in Berlin. Bilateral partnerships and our commitments to peace in the world are at the core of my approach to diplomacy. I am convinced that Germany has become the country in its today thanks in no small part to you, our partners and friends. And yet, 80 years after San Francisco, we must also face a sobering reality. Peace around the world remains fragile, perhaps more fragile than at any point since the end of the Cold War. Conflicts are raging from the Middle East to Myanmar and Haiti, threatening the livelihoods of far too many people around the world. In the Democratic Republic of Congo and in Sudan, violence has displaced millions and left them in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. And here in Europe, we are confronted with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine, a blatant violation of the UN Charter. As new German federal government, our highest priority is to preserve peace and security on our continent. That is why we are investing in our security in an unprecedented manner. This is why we will do whatever it takes to keep our citizens safe, and why we will leave no doubt that Germany is a reliable ally to its partners around the world. At the same time, we will make it our priority to strengthen international cooperation and the multilateral system, because we know that no nation can achieve peace and security for its citizens on its own. In an interconnected world, it is our shared interest to prevent conflicts and invest in peace. That is why Germany will remain a steadfast supporter of the United Nations. Mr. General Secretary, we just exchanged about that. But we all know that multilateralism and the UN are under strain, financially, and politically. Mr. Secretary General, you can count on Germany's support to reform and modernize the organization so that it delivers tangible results for more people in all our countries. One area where the UN has consistently delivered is the United Nations peacekeeping. For nearly 80 years, brave men and women from every corner of the globe have worked together to stop violence and contain conflicts. From infantry soldiers to aid workers, from police officers to legal experts, they have all served with dedication in complex missions around the world. While peacekeeping operations are no one-size-fits-all solution for every conflict, these men and women have saved millions of lives, and we have to honor them, ladies and gentlemen. The blue helmets are symbols of peace, and they risk their lives to uphold it. Far too many have made the ultimate sacrifice. In January, UN peacekeepers from South Africa and Uruguay were killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In February, a peacekeeper from Tunisia, and in March, a peacekeeper from Kenya lost their lives in the Central African Republic. Also in March, a Ukrainian crew member of the UN helicopter was killed in South Sudan. These attacks remind us how dangerous the environment of modern peacekeeping missions can be and how hard-won peace truly is. Today, I would like to honor their memory, and I would like to offer our condolences to the loved ones of 4,423 blue helmets who gave their lives in the line of duty. We owe them our deepest respect and gratitude. Ladies and gentlemen, peacekeeping brings the best of all of us together. Expertise from around the world, diverse cultural backgrounds, languages, and a profound understanding of local context. But we all know that peacekeeping must adapt to a changing international environment. Over the last decade, the number of conflicts has increased. Wars have grown more complex. Major peacekeeping missions have ended prematurely, and in some cases, they have lacked crucial local support. And we all know that the financial challenges for peacekeeping missions may increase in the months to come. The following key questions should therefore guide our discussions over the next 2 years. How can we make peacekeeping more effective, more efficient, and fit for the future? Allow me to offer 3 brief points for our consideration. First, agility and adaptability. Peacekeeping operations must be designed to respond swiftly to rapidly changing conflicts dynamics. This requires Security Council mandates that are not only realistic but also flexible. To help achieve this, we should discuss a modular approach to peacekeeping, designing more flexible, tailor-made missions that can adjust to specific contexts. We also need clear transition and exit strategies. Missions should develop defined transition plans from the outset. Second, local ownership. Peacekeeping missions can only succeed if they earn the trust and support of host governments and local communities from the very beginning. That is why close engagement with all relevant actors on the ground is essential. We must counter disinformation campaigns and attacks on UN personnel with determination and transparency. That is why we need to invest in strategic communication. And third, ladies and gentlemen, we must face the implications of diminishing resources. UN peacekeeping remains a sound investment and a powerful example for global burden sharing. Consider this: The entire annual budget for UN peacekeeping is less than the cost of the most recent Olympic Games. Germany, like many countries represented here today, is prepared to pledge additional resources because peacekeeping needs more and sustainable funding. However, more funding is only one part of the solution. Together, we should aim to make missions more efficient and more focused by providing clearer mandates, by cutting back to bureaucracy, and by avoiding duplications. With major contributions, is high. Let's be honest, there have been easier times for peacekeeping. That is why we will need to prove that we can find pragmatic and ambitious reforms. Ladies and gentlemen, 80 years ago, on the ashes of the Second World War, the United Nations was born with the aim to preserve peace. Today, as 80 years ago, it is our responsibility to invest in peace and ensure that peacekeeping is ready for the challenges of the 21st century. To borrow the words of the UN Charter, to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. I'm looking forward to working with you, with all of you, in that spirit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Foreign Minister Wadefull, for those opening remarks. Now, in your speech, you said that Germany will continue to be a reliable partner and that the UN can always count on Germany's support. I'm sure that people here are wondering, okay, how is that support exactly going to look like? The good news is that you'll be addressing some of those issues during a panel discussion later on. So we're happy to have you here with us. Thank you for inviting us to your house and also for participating in this UN Peacekeeping Ministerial. So it has been mentioned that Germany has a new government, hasn't even been in power for a week. And there's one member of cabinet who actually got to keep his old job. So he didn't have to change offices, didn't have to print new business cards. And he is here with us today. He's going to be our next speaker. I'm, of course, talking about the Federal Minister of Defense. He has always shown strong commitment for all matters that concern the UN, and especially for peacekeeping. So, sir, we're very much looking forward to hearing your remarks. A warm welcome to Minister Boris Pistorius.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, dear Mr. Secretary General, dear Joe, ambassadors, state secretaries, generals, admirals, representatives of international organizations and ministries, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to welcome you all to the UN Peacekeeping Ministerial 2025. I'm impressed and delighted to host such a truly global event here in Berlin. Thank you all for being here. I know many of you traveled a long, long way to Berlin, and that truly means a lot. Thanks for that. Without exaggeration, one can claim that the whole world is gathered here today, a very timely and very necessary gathering, since the challenges we face are also truly global and urge us to act. Ladies and gentlemen, we would not be able to protect peace and stability around the world without the valuable service of our men and women in peacekeeping missions. Let me therefore take a minute to thank the many military and civilian peacekeepers from all over the world that you are representing here today. For decades, they have stood on the front lines of our peacekeeping efforts, often under the most difficult conditions. All contributions, whether small or big, deserve our highest recognition. And we need to particularly remember those who did not come home. They remind us of the cost of peace and the duty we bear. They are one of the reasons why we need and want to do better. This is why we are here today and tomorrow. We want to look forward and discuss ideas for how to make our missions safer, more effective, and fit for the future. Such considerations are a first at a peacekeeping ministerial, but I believe they are highly necessary. I see three areas where change is needed. First, the digital transformation of peacekeeping and the use of technology at large. Uncrewed aerial vehicles or drones are one important capability amongst others that UN peace operations could largely benefit from. Second, our communication about the roles, tasks, and successes of missions need to be improved. More tangible results will increase mission acceptance, thereby further contributing to effective mandate implementation. And third, and most importantly, we should discuss the role of the mandates themselves. We need to ensure that they are achievable and aligned with the realities on the ground. And even more importantly, the mandate has to be matched by instruments and capabilities. UN peacekeeping missions must be adequately resourced at any time, at any place. Therefore, I'm looking forward particularly to the pledging sessions tomorrow. I'm eager to hear what you are going to announce. They are extremely important as they have a direct impact on our preparedness. Only through national contributions can we close capability gaps in existing and future missions. It is therefore especially important that all nations, big and small, honor their commitments, be it financially, politically, or operationally. As an international community, ladies and gentlemen, all of us are responsible for safeguarding peace and security. Together, we can and we will make an impact. We will increase overall mission effectiveness while enhancing the safety and security of our personnel deployed. Together, let us make UN peacekeeping stronger and safer. This is particularly important in today's times. We have come together in times of turmoil, times when our international order is under attack. The world, as we know, it is changing. Climate change is affecting the northern and the southern hemisphere, while radical technology developments are impacting on all areas of politics and on our societies. Emerging technologies such as cyber and space capabilities and drones are transforming the nature of conflicts and allow interference in crises without even having boots on the ground. They blur the boundaries between war and peace. These challenges are epochal. They affect our daily lives, our economies, and our prosperity. They will shape our collective future. And most importantly, they cross borders, continents, hemispheres, and they can only be tackled and solved together globally, ladies and gentlemen. Too many people around the world are living in violence, displacement, and despair. For some nations represented here today, this suffering is a daily reality. In the Middle East, conflict dynamics continue to escalate after the Hamas-led attack on Israel. And across the African continent, long-standing grievances are colliding in some regions with growing economic hardship and ecological stress. In the Indo-Pacific region, unresolved territorial disputes and deep mistrust between nations equally carry potential for conflict and escalation. And at the same time, Europe is witnessing in the 4th year the massive impact of Putin's illegal and ruthless war against Ukraine. It is a war not only directed against the brave people of Ukraine, it is an attack against international law, stability, and peace, ladies and gentlemen. Essentially, the question we face is whether we, as an international community, will allow an imperial power to trample on the freedom of another sovereign nations. All these power struggles are leading to the slow but constant erosion of the very institutions that once allowed us to navigate such crises. Our frameworks for dialogue, our arms control regime, our collective security mechanisms, leaving us with fewer tools to navigate the challenges ahead. This is a reality we live in, a reality which shows that peace and security are not a given, but need to be defended. Ladies and gentlemen, for Germany, this means two things. First, we take firm measures to do more for our own security. We are stepping up on deterrence and defense for our allies in Europe, while at the same time making sure that Ukraine gets the support it needs to defend itself. Second, this focus on deterrence and defense in Europe cannot and will not mean doing less for peace and stability in other regions of the world. We believe in a broad, integrated concept of security, building on traditional and new partnerships across the globe. Our commitment worldwide is and remains unabated. With many countries around the world, we work together to uphold and to strengthen a rules-based international order, be it the freedom of navigation, be it international arms control conventions, or be it the protection of our livelihood. As a member of the European Union, we are committed to strengthening our regional partnerships, be it with the African Union, with ECOWAS, with ASEAN, and with many other stakeholders of active multilateralism around the globe. I'm glad that many of these stakeholders are also represented here today. Our aim is to intensify our bilateral relations with the countries of the Global South. We want to expand them into a global network. It is a matter of sustainable partnerships, even when things get difficult, or even especially when it gets difficult. We are convinced that we need strong global partnerships on equal terms. A significant part of our global engagement takes place within the framework of UN peacekeeping. Ladies and gentlemen, Germany has been involved in UN peacekeeping since the 1970s and has been a true contributor since the 1990s. At present, we are participating in 5 of the 11 UN missions, either with Bundeswehr or with police and civilian personnel. Over the last decade, from land to sky and sea, we have sent women, men, and assets. Currently, Germany is a driver of UN peacekeeping reform as its largest voluntary donor. Since the inception of the peacekeeping ministerial process, we have provided almost $8 billion in assessed contributions and operational costs for German troops and capabilities deployed in UN operations. Through our multifold training and capacity building efforts with missions and troop contributing countries, we champion the idea of making peacekeeping more professional and fit for the future. One of our main concerns is the safety of every man and woman on our mission. We strongly believe that UN peacekeeping remains one of the most legitimate, effective, and cost-efficient tools of international crisis management. It is multilateralism in action. It is active burden sharing. UN peacekeeping has proven to be a cornerstone of international crisis response for over 77 years. It has protected lives, supported political processes, and helped rebuild stability over violence. It is a depth of experience, the ability to work across military, civil, and political lines, and the commitment to always putting people's safety first that makes it so enormously valuable. For Germany, there's no doubt we need to preserve and strengthen UN peacekeeping. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all once again for coming to Berlin. And thank you, Secretary General Guterres, for joining us and speaking to us. It is a great honor to have you here. A special thank you also to the UN Secretariat and the group of co-chairs for supporting the preparation and organization of this year's Ministerial. Last but not least, thank you, dear Joe Wadefuhl and the colleagues from the German Foreign Ministry for jointly hosting this important conference. We are looking forward to host all of you at the Ministry of Defense tonight. Let us make it clear that UN peacekeeping today is more vibrant than ever. It is and will remain a cornerstone of international stability and order. Let us commit to making it even more effective for the sake of those who depend on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister Pistorius, for those remarks. Thank you for inviting us to the reception this evening at your ministry. And we know that you'll also be joining a panel later today in the afternoon, and we'll be seeing you again tomorrow. So thank you really for making time for this very important conference. All right, you mentioned that digital transformation is one of the things that needs to be worked on when it comes to the UN peacekeeping missions, and that reminded me that I should point out that we, of course, are counting on you all to promote not only peacekeeping, but also to promote this conference. So I've seen lots of you taking photos and taking selfies. Please feel free to share them on social media, and when you do, make sure that you use our hashtags for this conference. We have 2 hashtags. One of them is PK Ministerial, that is PK Ministerial, and the other one is PKM 2025, PKM 2025. All right, it is now time for our keynote speech, and that keynote speech will come from none other than the United Nations Secretary General. He is, we know, a very busy man, but he's here with us today, which we are very, very much honored by. And this is a man who has made peace, the pursuit of peace, a priority on his agenda. He has put forward a new agenda for peace, and he always insists that we need to find the link between looking for peace, pursuing peace, and also pursuing the other sustainable development goals. And last year at the UN General Assembly, he said, building peace is humanity's greatest responsibility. We know that there are thousands and thousands of blue helmets who wake up every day and take on that responsibility. And I believe that everybody here in their own capacity is also willing and ready to take on that responsibility. So please, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, join me in welcoming His Excellency Antonio Guterres.
Dear Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Defense of the Federal Republic of Germany, our generous hosts, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my thanks to Germany for bringing us together at this consequential moment. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. Our organization was founded on the conviction that peace is possible if we work as one united human family. That is what our peace operations are about. From preventing diplomacy to peacekeeping, from negotiating ceasefires to helping to implement them, from electoral support and observer missions to demining operations and protection of civilians, to the focus of today's ministerial meeting, peacekeeping. Excellencies, UN Blue Helmets are the most globally recognized symbol of the world's ability to come together to help countries move from conflict to peace. Peacekeepers hail from every corner of the world, but they are united in their commitment to peace. As we meet today, UN peacekeepers are hard at work helping to ensure that ceasefires are respected, protecting civilians caught in the line of fire, helping provide the conditions for life-saving aid to flow to those in need, and laying the foundations for long-term recovery. In trouble spots around the world, blue helmets can mean the difference between life and death. And they are also a clear demonstration of the power of multilateral action to maintain, achieve, and sustain peace. There is a long list of countries that have achieved durable peace with the support of UN peacekeeping, including Cambodia, Côte d'Ivoire, El Salvador, Liberia, Namibia, Mozambique, Sierra Leone, and Timor-Leste. Many of these countries now themselves contribute troops. At the same time, we recognize that peace comes at a price. Through the decades, 4,400 peacekeepers have fallen in the line of duty. Their service and sacrifice will never be forgotten. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor all those that lost their lives in the pursuit of peace. Thank you. Excellencies, we owe it to peacekeepers and the populations they protect to continue strengthening their ability to answer this call to peace, and to do so in the face of daunting challenges. Complex, intertwined, and frequently borderless conflicts, growing polarization and division around the globe, targeting of peacekeepers through deadly misinformation spreading through social media, terrorism and transnational crime which find fertile ground in instability, the ongoing climate crisis that is exacerbating conflict while leaving more of the planet uninhabitable, all the continued trampling of international law and international humanitarian law. As a result, we are now facing the highest number of conflicts since the foundation of the United Nations and record number of people fleeing across borders in search of safety and refuge. We must recognize that peacekeeping operations are only as effective as the mandates directing them, and can struggle in contexts where political support and clearly defined outcomes and solutions are absent or elusive. Meanwhile, we see increasing difference of views around how peacekeeping operations should work, under what circumstances, with what mandates they should be deployed, and for how long. And we face dramatic financial constraints across the board. We have worked to adapt in the face of these challenges, but we need to do more. And today I want to highlight 3 areas of focus. First, help us shape peacekeeping operations that are fit for the future. The Pact for the Future called for a review of peace operations, including peacekeeping. The review will examine how we can make peacekeeping operations more adaptable, flexible, and resilient, while recognizing the limitations in situations where there is little or no peace to keep. It will also aim to critically examine the tools we have today and propose concrete recommendations to make them fit for the future. Through this review, we must ensure that the United Nations is prepared to deploy peace operations tailored to each individual conflict, while preparing for the challenges of tomorrow. We can draw inspiration from our UNIFIL operation, which recently developed an adaptation plan to keep peace along the blue line and ensure life-saving aid can flow to civilians in southern Lebanon. In the Central African Republic, we see MINUSCA protecting civilians and assisting the government to extend its reach beyond the capital where people are in desperate need. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, despite ongoing fighting, UN peacekeepers remain in the field protecting vulnerable populations. And we are also seeking efficiencies through partnerships from member states to regional and sub-regional organizations to local communities. Most important among them is our strong partnership with the African Union. Security Council Resolution 2719 has lifted this partnership to a new level as we work to establish peace enforcement missions under the EU's responsibility, supported by the United Nations through assessed contributions. Today, the review of peace operations will need to be informed and inspired by your views. Member states make peacekeeping possible, and they must lead the way as we strengthen it for the future. Second, as we make our operations more adaptable and flexible, we need to do the same in the use of our resources. Peace operations can only succeed when backed by robust mandates and clear, predictable and sustained contributions, both financial and logistical. But these are tough times for the financing of our work across the board. Peacekeeping is no exception. It is crucial that we are able to use the increasingly limited resources we have and use them well. And this requires more flexible rules and processes. This means updating our approach to abolishing or establishing positions and working with troop-contributing countries to ensure we can deliver. It means working with member states and the UN Security Council to ensure that any new mandates are prioritized and achievable with the resources available and with a clear exit strategy. And it means driving efficiencies and improvements across our work in light of the continued funding challenges we face. Our review of peace operations will work hand in hand with our UN80 initiative to ensure we maximize efficiencies wherever possible, supported at every step by member states. We look forward to your government's support and ideas as we tackle these challenges together.
Third, we need your political support, including through the pledges you will make tomorrow. Peace operations cannot succeed in the absence of a political solution. Together, we need to mobilize greater support for political solutions across our peacekeeping missions. Pursuing these political solutions requires adequate means of delivering our operations, including unified political support from member states, strong leadership, well-trained troops, equipment, and technology. These can strengthen our operations and make a real difference in people's lives. And it requires the support of all member states to ensure the safety and security of United Nations peacekeepers in the field and the full implementation of the relevant privileges and immunities of the organization and its personnel. We are deeply grateful for the support and for the concrete pledges so many of you will announce tomorrow. Your Excellencies, with a budget shared by all 193 member states and representing a tiny fraction of global military spending, around 0.5%, UN peacekeeping remains one of the most effective and cost-effective tools to build international peace and security. But it's only as strong as member states' commitment to it. Unfortunately, peacekeeping operations have been facing serious liquidity problems. It is absolutely essential that all member states respect their financial obligations, paying their contributions in full and on time. Now, more than ever, the world needs the United Nations. And the United Nations needs peacekeeping that is fully equipped for today's realities and tomorrow's challenges. Together, let's shape the UN peacekeeping operations that the challenges require, that member states demand, and that our peacekeepers and the people they support need and deserve. Thank you for your attention.
Secretary General, thank you very much for your keynote address, your clear words, but also your encouragement. We are now moving into the next part on our agenda, the family photo session. I will be joined here on stage with one of our photographers in a minute. He will take first a group picture of the whole group gathered here in the main plenary room. So please put on your best smile while we are waiting for our photographer to join me on the stage. On completion, then, we will invite all ministers and those with a placement card on your table to proceed to the door on the left-hand side. But I will direct you, soon we are. So please put on your best smiles now. Cheese. Thank you very much. So now, ministers and those with a placement card on your table, please proceed to your right-hand side. My dear colleague Liz is standing there, and they will line you up for the family picture outside. Other head of delegations, as well as delegates, you are kindly requested to remain seated here in the room so we can proceed on completion of the family picture with our agenda. The placement. plenary room. May I ask you to return to your seats?
I don't need it, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats now. Please take your seat now. Please take your seat now. Please take your seat now. Excellencies, welcome back to the main plenary room. Excellencies, please take your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to start with the first panel. As someone from the military, I like to stick to a plan and timings, and I enjoy that you will support me in this. Please take your seat now. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with our program now. For this first and today's path-breaking panel, we were able to win the support by a very distinguished academic and expert, Dr. Comfort Ero. Dr. Ero brings decades of experience in international diplomacy, conflict resolution, and strategic policy analysis. She has held senior roles across respected institutions and has worked extensively on peacekeeping, particularly in Africa and the Global South. In 2023, she was awarded the Sir Brian Okuat Award for Distinguished Service to the United Nations. Dr. Comfortero, a warm welcome. We are very delighted to have you here with us. I hand over the steering wheel to you. The floor is yours. Please welcome her.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a warm introduction, and I would welcome my other colleagues to join the podium, starting with you, Minister Vadapul, please, and also the Chief Advisor of Foreign Affairs for the People's Republic of Bangladesh. If Mr. Hossain can join us on the panel, please. And the Minister Nayanti, the Minister for Foreign Affairs for the Republic of Liberia, and then His Excellency Undersecretary General Lacroix as well. Please join me. Thank you. Please, Minister, here. It's really fantastic to see you all, and SG is nice to see you again, sir, as well. I'm going to apologize on behalf of Minister Vadapul and Undersecretary Lacroix, because I know that you both have to leave at 2:15 for other events, and it's not surprising because there's so many things going on. Minister Vadapul, first, congratulations on your new appointment.
Yeah.
I was taken aback by the remarks that you gave in the opening. As an organization that works on conflict prevention, it's really good to hear you, Minister, underline the importance of conflict prevention. And as somebody who worked as a civilian peacekeeper in the United Nations mission in your country, Minister, I was very reassured and to hear what you said, Secretary General, that that blue helmets, is the difference between life and death. I mean, there can be no better articulation as to what it means to be somebody who wears that blue helmet, or who wears it in the name of a civilian as well. And I was also, Minister, reassured that you reminded everybody here that this is not a looking back to the past, but it's about the future and about how we adapt in a very turbulent, dangerous world where the conflict landscape, quite frankly, is going in the wrong direction. I mean, every day the news headlines, more children dying, famine, seeing violence, seeing the attack, indiscriminate attack against the most innocent people of the world. And Minister, another thing that I took away from you was that you saw as the end goal of this mission, of these conversations over the next 2 days, about how we come out with a very effective, efficient idea of what peacekeeping ought to look like, not today, but tomorrow. So we've got really 4 distinguished people on the panel to answer the question of how we're going to get there. What do we need to do over the next 2 days, and how do we make sure that when we leave these halls in Berlin, Minister, that we have a very clear articulation of the things that we do. Given the short time, I'm going to turn the agenda slightly upside down. I've already told protocol I will hold you all firmly to your 2 to 3 minute intervention. But I want to start with our Minister and ask you, Minister, why you chose the future of peacekeeping as the theme for this ministerial. We heard a little bit about it, but I'd like to sort of double down and understand a little bit why you did that.
Yes, Comfort, thank you so much for the brilliant introduction, and thank you very much to everybody attending to this very important conference. We feel really honored, and I personally as well, that so many colleagues are here in Berlin, more than 130 countries, more than 50 ministers and deputy ministers. This is the biggest conference this ministry has ever hosted, so thank you so much. This is a very strong signal, I would like to say, for the appreciation of the work of UN peacekeepers. And that is the very reason, Comfort, I really supported the idea, and I'm very glad that the team, 1.5 years, and most of the time it was not so clear that I would take office here at this conference, that they prepared with diligence, and it was so hard work, this conference. And I want also once again to take the opportunity to thank all the countries to add really their personal to this very important work. In the Pact of Future, we as UN member states recommitted to the UN peacekeeping and stressed at the same time that UN peace operations need to adapt new needs and realities. Peacekeeping is, in my eyes, really an excellent example of cost-effective multilateral burden sharing in the very sense of that. So we want UN Blue Helmets to remain this instrument of peace, protecting millions of civilians and monitoring ceasefires. But, as you said, complex demands and diminishing resources are testing the limits of the current peacekeeping approaches, and despite their merits, we must recognize that peacekeepers are not always and everywhere well received, unfortunately. If we want to improve peacekeeping, and that is the very idea of this conference, we have to reform it. So how can we use the experience of over 100 operations over the last 80 years to make peacekeeping fit for the future? This is a question I would like to raise. Earlier today, you mentioned it, I made some suggestions. They include more focused mandates, more local ownership, and more efficiency. It will be important in my eyes to continue these discussions and to have first results this year. Time is running and we have really to speed up. And thank you very much for the opportunity to begin this process right here. You will see Germany as playing an active role in this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. And what a way to start your new portfolio. Minister Hussein, I mean, your country is one of the largest sort of troop and police contributing countries. I mean, I certainly witnessed Bangladesh's performance in various countries that I worked in. I'd like to gauge from you, Minister, as we look into the future, what do you see as the sort of the key challenges that we need to sort of bear in mind with the changing nature of the conflict landscape? How do you see that within the context of peacekeeping from your perspective? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ero. Thank you for the kind introduction, and I thank the government of Germany for hosting this 2025 UN Peacekeeping Ministerial and for the warm hospitality you have accorded to all of us. About the challenges. First of all, we all know that the key mandate of the UN peacekeeping lies in ensuring the protection of civilians. All stakeholders, including the host government, peacekeepers on the ground, and UN management, must be on the same plane with regard to the scope of the mandate. And the mandates of the UN peacekeeping must be realistic and aligned with the ground realities. A well-calibrated mandate from Security Council is crucial for the ultimate success of the operations. Failure to respond appropriately to the mandate creates a sense of failure in the communities, host governments, and peacekeeping leadership. Cooperation from the host government is key here. Next, there remain challenges to update the force agreements to make it most suitable with time. Time changes, hence needs changes accordingly. Agreements framed long back to meet the past needs don't seem to be enough to address the present needs so effectively implement the protection mandate. Then one important widely discussed challenge is the lack of planning capabilities. even though we can never predict what the future holds. A sound planning process integrating the civilian, military, and police components is essential in our journey towards the future of peacekeeping. A frequent change in mission requirements without corresponding capacity building support for TPCCs also disrupts the peacekeeping operations. View of the TPCCs should be reflected while bringing any change in the requirements of existing missions. The peacekeepers are often expected to deliver on broad mandates, such as protection of civilians and stabilization, without sufficient resources or capabilities. Weaponization of new technologies and weaponization of information are two of the most complex challenges of our time. Due to the proliferation of technology, non-state actors are now able to target peacekeepers in unconventional ways. Growing threats from asymmetric warfare, IEDs, and hostile groups often occur without adequate force protection measures. We call for giving highest priority to ensuring safety and security of our peacekeepers. The weaponization of false narratives through misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda campaign is also growing every day. Lastly, the point I would like to highlight is a resource constraint. Our colleague has already mentioned this also, which is creating an ever-increasing gap between the funding and the support required. The level of uncertainty regarding funding for the UN, including for peacekeeping, is now greater than ever before. We must prepare for various scenarios, which again takes back to the point of integrated and dedicated planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Before I turn to His Excellency Jean Lacroix, I wanted to turn to you, Minister, because Liberia is often put up as a poster child of successful peacekeeping mission. And because, Minister, you emphasized going forward that one of the key lessons or one of the key issues we must always remember is local ownership. I think it's no better person to hear from. Do you agree that it was a successful mission? Why? And what do you think are the key lessons, if any, that we can take forward from the Liberia experience?
So if I'm speaking as the Minister of Foreign Affairs today in relation to the peacekeeping operation in Liberia, I would say for the large part, it was successful. Liberia has transitioned to peace, and although the peace is fragile, we're maintaining our peace. And we have all intent to sustain our peace. If I'm speaking as a Liberian woman, one who was a national staff in the UN at the time of the peacekeeping mission, and then one who had the experience of becoming DSRSG in a peacekeeping mission later on in South Sudan, I would say that lessons to learn. I would say the lessons to learn because today, some of the things we see in Liberia manifesting are consequences of some of the gaps in terms of how the peacekeeping mission and the UN development system worked together to ensure that we are where we are today in support of the Liberian people. If you look at the issue of drug abuse, at-risk youth, and all of some of the social consequences we have today, we can look back at DDRR processes and look at the fact that we didn't have a longitudinal approach to follow these child soldiers, to follow the whole DDR process. We had 1 or 2 counseling sessions, people were sent to their communities, and that was it. So today in 2025, Liberia remains a traumatized society. People are traumatized and mental health was not addressed. So I think there's a lot we can learn from the Liberian experience, especially as it relates to peace building and social cohesion. And I would like to add one point to that. Wherever a peacekeeping mission is placed, you have a UN development system structure that predates it. You would most likely have a humanitarian architecture that predates it. And when the peacekeeping mission comes in with all of its apparatus and its structure and all the people, it sort of takes all the air in the room. And when that peacekeeping mission leaves, the expectation of the community, of the people, is that what they benefited would continue. The expectations are not met, and so you come in with a lot of resources at a particular point in time, you withdraw the resources, and there's a huge gap. Economic impact is felt where people were buying bags of coal at a local level for $200 Liberian. The UN came in and said, we'll pay $5 a bag. They didn't care what that meant to the average family. So these are some of the lessons we've learned, and I think it's something that needs to be looked at as you're looking at the future of peacekeeping.
That is quite a challenge you put down because you're asking peacekeepers but also the other agencies that are part of the UN family to have a sort of a wholesale, comprehensive societal approach to how they deal with that, and the trauma and the mental health that you outline is an important one, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss that over the next coming days. But let me turn to you, Jean-Lacroix. You know, we've been back and forth, you know, as crisis group, looking intently at peacekeeping, and certainly continue to still see value despite the challenges that were articulated by yourself, by the Secretary General, and by the Minister as well. As you look down the horizon, prepare for the future, you know, what do you see as the success, but what do you see as the main sort of challenge going forward? The Minister has already articulated the liquidation crisis, but in a nutshell, what do you see as does the future look hopeful, bleak, somewhere in between, in terms of the future of peacekeeping?
Thank you, first of all, to Germany for hosting us, but also for having put the future of peacekeeping as the focus of that meeting, because this is really the right moment to do so. And first of all, I think it's important to define success. And defining success is defining what are the objectives to be met. And we need clarity on this one, both in terms of the member states, those who decide, but also the members of the missions, the civilian, the police, the military, and the partners. So there has to be consistency and clarity in terms of what are the objectives that we want to pursue. And of course, these have to be realistic. Now, realism depends on the conditions. Realism depends on the level of support that the mission gets in terms of the political environment, in terms of the resources, and so on and so forth. Now, as we move forward, I think political support, not only, and stronger political support, not only to the mission themselves, but also, and perhaps more importantly, to the political efforts that the missions are supporting, that is critical. Because I think that in the context of a more divided international community, then it is more difficult to achieve our goals, and where we are challenged, it is also more difficult to achieve the kind of support that we need to move forward. So this is, for me, quite critical. But then, in addition to that, of course, there are lots of other challenges that have been explained in terms of the evolution of the nature of conflict, in terms of the not so new, but the increased importance of drivers of conflict, such as the impact of climate change, transnational criminal activities, and so on and so forth. And of course, the impact of the enablers, the evolving enablers, such as digital technologies. So there are different levels for which, at which we need to respond to that. Some of these levels are more technical. It's about how do we work for the digital transformation, for the improvement of safety and security, countering disinformation and all that kind of thing. But there is a more strategic level, which is about thinking about the mandate, and this has been something that was said all along, prioritizing the mandates, making sure that we count increasingly on partnership, that we work together with our member states to have more flexible rules in terms of how we use our resources. And then we also need to, and this is really the objective of the review of peace operation as requested by the Pact for the Future, we need to look at the broader spectrum. What is the limit of peacekeeping? What are the other ways of, what are the other kind of multilateral responses to peace and to challenges to peace and security? How do we articulate them? How do we resource them? I think in the end, and that these will be my last words, it's not so much about imagining new models. It's about being ready as UN, as Secretariat, as what I call the family of peacekeeping, together with the member states, being ready both in terms of adapting the existing missions, but also be prepared for whatever will come our way. We don't know, but there might be new opportunities. We have to make sure that our system is ready for that.
Can I just keep the mic with you, because I'm looking at the time. Can I get you to kind of step back and put a little bit more flesh on the bone on what you were describing? What sounded like a vision for UN peacekeeping. Specifically, what does that look like concretely, so that as to sort of guide the conversations that we're going to have for the next few days?
Right. First of all, when I talk about the mandates, in other words, the consistency between what is requested and then what kind of support is being put to achieving the objectives. I think that we have to keep in mind that we can never operate alone. So I think one of the key elements of the maybe vision is a bit of a grand word, but the future of peacekeeping is very much about partnership. Because if you define clearly what the role and task of a peacekeeping mission has to be, then you also define what the role of others should be in promoting peace and security. The Minister for Liberia talked about promoting peace building and development, and of course that has to be factored in very early on in defining the mandates. What kind of partnership do we need to promote political efforts? Because we don't do that alone. We need the support of regional, sub-regional organizations such as the AU, the European Union, and how do we collectively work to define these objectives. So that is really the key sort of parameter. Then defining success also means that, on the one hand, you can have comprehensive mandates, fine, if there is buy-in for that, but on some other cases which we currently have, it's only about monitoring ceasefire. There has to be clarity as to what these objectives are, and then what are the new tools that are needed for that. I'm just mentioning this example of monitoring ceasefire because I think that if the UN peacekeeping were called to monitor ceasefire tomorrow, to create a new operation to do exactly this, it would be totally different from 50 years ago. And we have to think about it in advance, even though now it's completely hypothetical. What would be the role? Even what would a ceasefire agreement look like? Totally different from 50 years ago. What would be the tools that would be needed? What kind of violations would we have to address? I mean, all of this has to be factored in, and of course you could replicate this kind of reasoning to broader mandates, to broader objectives. But I think this is the kind of thing that we want to sort of look at as we move forward.
Yeah. Mr. Hussein, can I put you on the spot because Jean Lacroix has said realism is at the heart of it. You're at the front line, a troop contributing country. What is the one thing, if you had one line in the future sort of template for peacekeeping and policing aspect also in that peacekeeping, what is the one thing that you would insist on from the lessons that you have learned for what a future peacekeeping operation could look like?
Well, since you want a one-liner.
Yes, one-liner. I'm going to take you away from your script.
Let us, I think that what we need is that one is adequately empowering them. Adequately empowering them equipment-wise and also relation-wise in the society that they're going to protect, in the protection. I think if that can be done and the UN can be actively involved in doing this, interface between the peacekeepers and the local community, I think I would say that that is the number one thing that would be required. There are many other things, but this is the, I think, most important thing in making the effort successful. Thank you.
Let's see. Okay. Look, we're back. Minister, I'm hoping, I think I'm right in saying that Liberia will be announced as a new member of the Security Council, as part of the cohort of the new non-permanent members of the Security Council to take up their position in January of 2026 as well. So that puts you in a hot seat at the Security Council. Based on what you've just said in terms of how you sort of connect the dots between peacekeeping, peace building, and development. What would be sort of the one message that you would like to give to Security Council members as they begin to craft what the vision looks like for peacekeeping tomorrow?
Thanks, and let me just use the opportunity of your intro to ask every member state here to please vote for Liberia. We need 129 votes. We need 129 votes.
Can I vote? Because I'd vote for you first.
But one of the areas that Liberia is hoping to champion on the Security Council is the UN Security Council reform. And it goes beyond the issue of Africa having permanent seats. What's the use of permanent seats if a few countries can veto and your time on the Security Council it's not valued and your voice is not valued?
Exactly.
So if the UN is carrying forward the values and principles around leaving no one behind, around justice and equality, equity, and voices being heard, the Security Council that's responsible for shaping peacekeeping missions needs to lead by example. The Security Council needs to be fit for purpose. And it starts there, because the missions would not be fit for purpose if the council that decides the missions is not fit for purpose. And I think that's where it starts. So Liberia will be championing the need for Security Council reform and for us to go back and look at this issue of the veto. Definitely we must have permanent seats as Africa. That's a must. It has to happen. But we need to look at the whole issue of veto.
Thank you very much. And Minister, I wanted to leave the last word with you because you set the stage for 2 days of robust conversation about the future, and I want to underline that future. Now, you're both, a foreign minister, but you also have a domestic constituency. We all have domestic constituency, and your opening line is what it takes as well. When you're explaining that, both at home and abroad, what does the future look like within that framework of what it takes in terms of saving lives, both within this continent, because you made that very clear, and that is a big task, but also overseas, beyond the European borders as well. You mentioned the DRC, you mentioned the Sahel, you mentioned the Horn of Africa, you mentioned a host of other places. So what does the future look like within that framework of what it takes? Give us something to think about over the next two. What is the marching orders that you are giving this audience to think about for the next 2 days?
I would say peacekeepers need peacemakers. And that is what my colleague from Liberia said before. We need the Security Council really to be responsible on the mandates. How many mandates do we put in words? How realistic are these mandates? How clear are they to fulfill the people who are doing the job, their obligations? That is, I think, that should be rethought. And of course, before that, we as politicians have the job, and all the diplomats here as well, to prohibit that resentiments emerge to a real conflict, especially to a war. So that is sometimes underestimated. There's a lot to do, so that we do not need to think whether peacekeepers were needed. Secondly, I would associate myself with what the Undersecretary said beforehand. The missions, and also if I have to explain it in my constituency or in my country here, these missions have to be efficient, effective, and that they can deliver to the people, to the really bare needs of the people. If you look to internally displaced persons, victims of war, civilian populations, they look to these peoples, to the soldiers and to the policemen and to the women of protection. We must not let them down. We must fulfill their hopes and expectations. And that is also a thing I can explain here in my country and contribute more support for what we are doing on that very level. And the third thing is, would be in my view, that we must not shy away from one of the most vital challenges for the future of these peacekeeping missions. It is, of course, the diminishing resources. We cannot change that. They will, unfortunately, diminish. So whatever we're going to invest, and Germany will invest more than before, we cannot replace others who are going out, and it's not only the financial resources. But to explain to the people that each and every UN peacekeeping is really a good investment, and I do not see any better investment on peace between people, on really to look at these people as human beings who have their personal rights and their dignity, and that we have to use all our possibilities to preserve them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. That is such a powerful, but also a very humble note to end on, to remind everybody of the investment in peace and peacekeeping. But I don't want people to miss the other important message that was in between your statement, that we oftentimes underestimate the prohibition, you know, and making sure that actually the money is well spent if you prevent. Because you don't want to get to a situation where you have to build up a peacekeeping mission. So I think that also has to be part of the conversation that we have over the 2 days as well. So Minister, on that note, thank you very much, and to you and to your counterparts for a very good opening for our first session. And thank you for keeping to time as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
As our ministers go down, we're going to have intervention by seven or eight countries, and I will call them up in the order in which I have them listed. But I'll wait for our colleagues in the front to depart. Thank you. The very first Minister of Foreign Affairs from Finland will have the floor to make a 2 to 3 minute intervention. Minister, it's really nice to see you again. Thank you very much. Really nice to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good to be here. Excellencies, nearly 8 decades, UN peace operations have functioned as essential instruments for the maintenance of international peace and security. And more often than not, they have succeeded. With 7 decades of troop and police contributing, Finland remains committed to UN peace operations and to their development. The central goal in reforming peace operations should be to strengthen the ability of the UN to maintain peace and security. It is crucial that the UN has the tools it needs. The review of all forms of future UN peace operations, as mandated by the Pact for the Future, is an opportunity to ensure that peace operations are fit for purpose. Let me provide some key elements that we see pertinent when we look at the future. First, the ability of the Security Council to take decisions on peace operations and its steadfast support to the operations is vital. In the past decades, the UN General Assembly has also taken action and even mandated peace operations. Second, peace operations should be established and implemented in a peace process-centered manner with different types of engagements in accordance with the needs on the ground. Adaptability comes from using the whole toolbox of responses available for the UN. Third, peace operations must continue to put people first. The protection of civilians has been included in mandates due to painful lessons from the past. The United Nations must take action in the face of atrocities. Fourth, strengthening peace operations starts from the planning practices. Exit strategies and transitions need to be planned early so that the risk of relapse into conflict is minimized. Fifth, as attacks on hard-won gains on women's rights and gender equality increase, we have to push back the pushback. Measures are needed to ensure full, equal, safe, and meaningful participation of women in all political, military, and security structures, including peace operations. Sixth, UN peace operations require a reliable financial basis to operate. All UN member states have a duty under the UN Charter to pay their assessed contributions on time and in full. Finally, any targeting of UN peacekeepers' infrastructure, whether by force, GPS jamming, or information campaigns, is not acceptable. All attacks must be thoroughly investigated and perpetrators brought to justice. Excellencies, since 1955, Finland has contributed with more than 50,000 peacekeepers to over 50 different peacekeeping operations around the world, not to forget our contribution to the UN police. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that this most effective multilateral tool for peace remains relevant, impactful, and fit for purpose. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next minister is the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Migration and for Tunisia abroad. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm good, thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Assalamu alaikum.
Now I start.
You can start. You have 3 minutes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, early after its independence, Tunisia has been engaged into a long-standing humanitarian and diplomatic endeavors aiming at ensuring a genuine contribution to the UN peacekeeping forces. This contribution started in 1960 with the participation in the UN mission to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Today, almost 6 decades and more later, Tunisia reaffirms its steadfast commitment to shaping the future of peacekeeping, a committed, rooted in history and our vision for a more just and peaceful world. In this spirit, Tunisia is proud to announce that we will host a landmark event, a high-level conference about the role armed forces in the protection of civilians in peacekeeping operations. That will be in Tunis from 10 to 11 July 2025, in partnership with the United Nations Peace Department. It will be the illustration of our will to address one of the most pressing imperatives of our time, ensuring that peacekeeping missions prioritize the safety and dignity of civilians caught in conflict. For Tunisia, it is a call to action reflecting our belief that protecting civilians is the heartbeat of credible and effective peacekeeping. I would like first to commend the valuable insights offered by the independent study commissioned by the United Nations Department of Peace Operation, the future of peacekeeping, new models and related capability, which concludes that UN peacekeeping continues to be a valuable multilateral instrument for preventing and mitigating armed conflict, sustaining peace, and addressing a wide array of threats to international peace and security. As a matter of fact, the international community stands at a pivotal moment marked by glaring weakness, inadequate responses to humanitarian crisis, and a failure to address the root causes of instability. Peacekeeping cannot remain a reactive tool. It should be and should become a proactive force that bridges divides, fosters reconciliation, and builds resilience. Tunisia's own experience in transition, born from a demand for dignity and inclusion, serves as a living example of what it is possible when peace is always the focus in compass, as it is rooted in humanity. The vision is not abstract. It is shaped by the reality we face. Today's conflicts are not distant tragedy. They are urgent calls for a peacekeeping framework that tackles inequality, exclusion, and governance failure. Few words, key success words I should mention, Madam, with your permission. Strong determination, strong commitment to the UN values charter, enlargement of the force, of the keeping force, enlargement of our partnership. As an African citizen, I would commit myself as a minister, as a citizen, that we should be hand in hand with the UN in this endeavor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you. Thank you very much. I call next the Foreign Minister for Panama, please, if you are here. See you, Minister. Thank you. I'll give you the floor for your 3-minute intervention. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Excellencies. I will address the audience in Spanish, so please. Gracias por la oportunidad.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Es importante para nuestro país
It's important for
el
our
futuro
country,
de las operaciones de la paz.
or rather, peacekeeping operations are important
Esas
for the
misiones
future of our country.
están evolucionando y sus mandatos deben adaptarse a las nuevas realidades.
That we have need to be adapted to new
El mundo se
realities.
enfrenta a una desigualdad
The world
socioeconómica
is facing
insostenible,
unsustainable
a la lucha por los
socioeconomic
recursos
imbalances,
naturales,
the
a las nuevas
fight
tecnologías
for
y al
natural
fenómeno del
resources.
extremismo.
We're also
Cada
facing
uno
new
de estos
technologies
desafíos
and extremism.
están
Each of these
interconectados.
challenges are
Y sus
interconnected,
consecuencias van más allá
and their consequences go beyond our national borders.
Considera que el enfoque
Panama thinks
principal debe ser
that
de prevención
the main focus here should be on prevention
y de construcción de paz permanente
and
como un
making
elemento
sure
urgente
that
que debe
keeping
ejecutar
peace
cada Estado
is
miembro
something urgent that every member state should be addressing in all of the different aspects of peacekeeping operations and in specialist political missions.
la mediación
Here, in terms of preventive actions, we should be looking at mediation as well. There should be permanent dialogue, which would show a genuine political commitment, and we should be defending multilateralism.
el fortalecimiento de las instituciones
We
democráticas
also need to strengthen
mejorar nuestras capacidades
our democratic institutions to make sure we have the ability to respond and revitalize these peace operations.
garantizar la seguridad física, mental y emocional
We
de los
need
agentes de paz.
to make sure that peacekeeping soldiers and personnel are protected in every way, emotionally and physically. The people working out there on the ground are facing increasingly complex challenges and can suffer from post-traumatic disorders after their service.
La reputación
We also need to make sure that the reputation of the United Nations is defended.
incluir la modernización de esas
We
misiones con la
need to
tecnología apropiada.
make sure that we use the right technology and include that in our modernized operations. The peace that we're aiming at has to use a holistic approach with developing with local populations crisis prevention measures. Here we're talking about the civil rights of those populations and their human rights, referring here to the Charter of the United Nations and the territorial integrity that sovereignty involves. This is something, a principle that Panama defends. We have seen that the United Nations is going to then approve a peacekeeping mission to Haiti. This is something that we're calling for. But we can't have a situation where we don't agree when we're facing this kind of situation in one of our brother countries. That's why, as I say, we need to strengthen multilateralism with the right mechanism to deal with these global challenges. We would like to defend the world order that we have, which we've all been contributing to for 80 years and which we'd like to keep, putting the common good above all and applying international humanitarian law. This is part of an alliance in the United Nations, in Africa and in the European Union. We have heard that there is criticism because we're not able to then resolve deep-seated conflicts, but we need to make sure that we have the right mechanisms and accountability. We've also heard comments about financing and the political willpower behind all of this. We need to make sure that the commitment is there. To conclude, I would like to say in English.
Como Ministro de Relaciones Exteriores, as Minister of Foreign Affairs of Panama, I must say loud and clear that one action that all of you could take to maintain stability is to adhere to the protocol of neutrality of the Panama Canal. The canal belongs to Panama, and rest assured, it will remain so. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you. Thank you very much. I call upon the Minister of Defense for Slovenia to join us on the podium, please, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you.
Secretary General Antonio Guterres, distinguished ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. At the outset, I wish to convey our sincere appreciation to the Federal Republic of Germany for hosting and convening this important peacekeeping ministerial. For over 75 years, United Nations peacekeeping has been an instrumental part of an integrated approach to peace and security. In this context, we honor the unwavering dedication of peacekeepers serving under challenging conditions and pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Colleagues, today we stand at a critical crossroad. We face increasing complex and multidimensional threats. Peacekeeping is being tested like never before. It's time we need to ask ourselves, what must peacekeeping become to remain relevant and effective on this new era? Slovenia firmly believes that the future of UN peacekeeping depends on an ambitious yet realistic transformation, one that stays true to the principles of the United Charter, but also adapts to the challenges of our time. That is why we welcome the ongoing reform efforts. We must move beyond traditional reactive models and embrace approaches that are proactive, dynamic, adaptable, yet sustainable. First, the future of peacekeeping is a question of a political will. Peacekeeping must be more in harmony with the needs of those it serves and committed to protecting the most vulnerable. We must enhance efficiency through smarter planning, innovations, and effective use of technology, making peacekeeping more responsive, accountable, and result-driven, even in times of limited resources. Slovenia fully meets its financial commitments, and we call on all member states to do the same. Slovenia remains firmly committed to ensuring that peacekeeping continues to protect and bring peace and security where it's needed. Colleagues, the challenges ahead are real, but so is our shared commitment to peace. Let us seize this moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Real pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. I call upon Costa Rica's Foreign Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Worship. Thank you very much, sir.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, Costa Rica is honored to participate in this crucial discussion that provides for guidance on the future of the United Nations peacekeeping. As a country without an army, Costa Rica is strongly committed to multilateralism and its values. In this regard, wishes to continue contributing to peacekeeping debates and collective ideas. With this commitment in mind, I will today outline 5 key proposals focusing on the pillars of coherence, accountability, sustainability, people-centered approaches, and peacekeeper welfare. Firstly, we call for enhanced strategic coherence. Mandates must align more closely with political strategies, prioritize conflict preventive and transitions, and integrate cross-cutting issues such as human rights, climate security, and gender equality into mission planning. As discussed in the C-34 Special Committee this year, Costa Rica supports establishing regional strategic integration units to ensure contextual relevance and coordination across peace operations in shared geopolitical spaces. Secondly, we demand accountability and zero tolerance for misconduct in UN operations. Our peacekeepers must uphold the highest standards or face swift consequences. We call for transparent investigation processes, strengthen UN member state collaboration on discipline, and enhance training against sexual exploitation. Thirdly, we must prioritize long-term sustainability of peace operations. Costa Rica calls for greater mission agility, stronger partnerships with host communities, and deeper environmental accountability. We support the full implementation of the digital transformation strategy for peacekeeping and urge that 50% of mission energy be drawn from renewable sources by 2028. Sustainability also means smarter operations. The Unite Aware platform is a game changer, consolidating real-time data on patrols incidents through integrated data. Costa Rica also welcomes the commitment for adequate, predictable, and sustainable financing for peace operations reflected in the Pact for the Future. Fourthly, we prioritize people-centered peacekeeping. Reforms must ensure that operations are grounded in mandates that protect civilians and foster long-term peace building. We propose expanding community engagement, as the significant success of the peacekeeping architecture depends on the way missions communicate with diverse stakeholders, including local communities and other regional or local stakeholders. Finally, we call for enhanced investment in the welfare and preparedness of peacekeepers. In line with evolving operational demands and the UN's own mental health strategy, Costa Rica urges full implementation of the new mental health support framework. Protecting those we deploy is a moral obligation and a prerequisite for effective, credible peacekeeping. Together with these 5 proposals, we represent a renewed commitment to the foundational values of the United Nations. Peacekeeping must evolve to meet today's challenges, but its core purpose must remain constant: to protect the vulnerable, to serve with integrity, and to build lasting peace. I thank you.
Thank you. I call upon the Minister of Defense from Montenegro, please. Thank you very much, Minister. Real pleasure to meet you.
Distinguished delegates, esteemed guests, respected colleagues. United Nations peace operations represent a key mechanism for maintaining global security, preventing conflict, and protecting the civilian population. Effective participation in peace operations requires continuous investment in training, capacity building, and international partnership. Montenegro has been actively contributing to UN peacekeeping operations for many years and will continue, of course, to do so. We were a part of UN mission for Liberia for 9 years, currently 9 rotations in MINURSO mission in Western Sahara, as we are preparing to start UN mission in Cyprus, thus further affirming our commitment to global peace and security. In these challenging times, ladies and gentlemen, UN peacekeeping must rise to meet the demands. The nature of violence has changed, and so must our response. Our missions must be more agile, better equipped, and more politically responsible. Peacekeepers must also be trained to address emerging challenges like terrorism, cyber, and other hybrid threats. In accordance with the UN Women, Peace and Security Agenda, our armed forces of Montenegro, have been deploying female members to these missions since 2020. Women bring unique perspectives, bridge communication gaps, and foster trust within communities affected by conflicts. An inclusive peacekeeping force is a stronger one. It is our collective responsibility to break down the barriers, challenge the outdated perceptions, and create the environment where women in peacekeeping are valued for their expertise. With that being said, and bearing in mind Montenegro's strong commitment to the principles of UN Security Resolution 1325, later this year we intend to organize a regional 1325 conference, which will gather defense ministers of the region, define future joint activities related to the promotion of gender perspective, and send a clear message of importance of equal participation of women in all efforts aimed at maintenance and promotion of peace and security. Ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude my remarks by highlighting the modern peacekeeping operations are tasked not only with facilitating peace processes, but also with strengthening governments, rule of law, child protection, gender equality, and civil society support, which are, of course, critical pillars of a sustainable peace. In crisis situation, the credibility and the moral authority of peacekeeping missions backed by political support become an imperative. Therefore, we need to stand united in this mission, ensure that our actions reflect our ideals, and that every peacekeeper, every mission, and every decision we make are guided by unwavering commitment to human dignity and security. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good luck at the conference. Thank you. I call upon the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Mali, please.
Thank you very much for according our country this opportunity to also make a contribution to this discussion. I'd like to share the experience of my country, Mali. Now, I must admit that Mali has had rather unfortunate experience for 10 years of peacekeeping operations. We had a UN operation operating in Mali. That was an unfortunate experience and didn't really boost stability and meet the goals, and hence the government of Mali in 2023 had to request that that mission be ended. We nonetheless would like to acknowledge the sacrifice of the peacekeepers who were on the spot, and all the people who were there in good faith to assist us. And I'd like to focus on 4 key points to address our experience. First of all, it's vital to have mandates which are adjusted to the situation of our country. In Mali, it was essentially an asymmetric warfare situation. And as the Secretary General has indicated, you cannot send a peacekeeping mission to an area where there is no peace to keep. And our local populace were frustrated and indeed even angry to see that armed forces came along and massacred civilians. The peacekeepers were there, frequently saying that it wasn't within their mandate and they could not help. That was very problematic. Secondly, the mission wasn't able to assist us on security issues, and so they started to address other issues, political issues, human rights issues, extending their mandate, and that moved us away from the actual goal of peacekeeping. The next point I want to address is the need for ongoing consultation between the UN mission on the one hand and the country in question. There's a need for cooperation, coordination, consultation. Very often, the mission tended to take the place of national authorities or to simply ignore them. There were some activities that we found out about from the media, or we heard about reports published on our country without any consultation whatsoever. Missions cannot operate without the consent of the states in question, and of course they're only going to succeed if they work in consultation with the states involved. I'd like to underline as well how important it is on every occasion to take into account and respect the sovereignty of nation states. Even countries that are in crisis are very keen to affirm their sovereignty, and the United Nations should work to reinforce nation states' sovereignty. We have to think about nation building as well. A UN mission is not intended to be eternal. You need to really work to support this. We received $1.3 billion per annum to that mission, and I have to say that very little of that was accorded to the state of Mali for nation building and to boost its capacity. And the next lesson I'd like to underline, we really saw in the context of MONUSMA that there was instrumentalization of human rights, sometimes for political or geopolitical ends. Some choices taken by the government of Mali didn't suit some partners. The peacekeeping mission drew up biased reports, sometimes hostile towards us, sometimes imbalanced. That created a crisis between the United Nations and Mali, and that certainly didn't help at all. Furthermore, we would like to condemn one particular practice, which is rather colonial, while people really speak on our part. We don't want the former colonial powers to be drawing up resolutions on our country with attitudes that are very condescending and look down on us. So these lessons need to be taken into account. We're not saying that peacekeeping missions are not useful, or quite the contrary, but all of these concerns need to be taken into account to help countries to move towards stability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I call upon our last speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Guinea, to come to the podium, sir. Thank you.
Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs,
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, distinguished delegates, members of the diplomatic corps, consuls, members of the consular staff, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of NGOs, and all the corps who participate in peacekeeping activities worldwide. Now, the Republic of Guinea, ladies and gentlemen, for some years, in fact since 1958, has been independent. And my country, since then, has always participated in peacekeeping activities worldwide. Our country, ladies and gentlemen, was founded on the basis of legality, of equality, of responsibility, and the protection of the dignity of humankind. With this in mind, we, in fact, have participated in nearly all the UN peacekeeping missions when requested to do so. Moreover, in most cases, our country, in fact, was a volunteer to participate in peacekeeping operations. On behalf of the President of the Republic of Guinea, I would like to extend a cordial greeting to you, and I'd like to thank the UN for their incredible efforts and what they have been doing in terms of their deployment to keep a balanced, peaceful world, despite the fact that the measures do not always lead to the expected outcomes, because the participation with respect to discussions on these issues which relate to humanity are sometimes mixed. So we've got to make sure that the voice of the UN can be heard, so that peacekeeping can be discussed worldwide on global level, and not only within the Security Council. Decisions are taken by 5 countries concerning 193 countries are not always expedient because the members of the Security Council sometimes do not really know what is happening on the ground. Hence, my country would like to appeal, ladies and gentlemen, to the United Nations to ensure that decisions relating to intervention are really well prepared in terms of discussion and take account of the situation on the ground. Billions of dollars may be spent, but this does not necessarily solve all the problems worldwide. We need consultation. You've got to think of the matter of human dignity. And there are no half persons. Every single person worldwide is a person to be respected, and the life of one person in one country is the same as that of humanity in general. So we would like to launch this appeal. Let's join hands worldwide to make sure that we can craft peace, real peace. Peace is indispensable for development. For the Republic of Guinea, we will always participate. We have always participated in the design and discussion and implementation of any decision taken, provided that these decisions are taken on the basis of the equality of every single human being on this planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the ministers for their various interventions. And I'm going to turn the floor back to our Master of Ceremonies to close out this first high-level session. Thank you very much.
Am I on? Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Comfort Arrow. That was brilliant, the way you handled the floor here, the way you made sure that we get concrete answers from our esteemed politicians. You said they need to put meat to the bones. We don't want answers that are difficult to understand or answers that do not lead us in the direction that we want to go in the discussions that we'll be having during these 2 days. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, ministers, for the interventions. Thank you for sticking to time. You've given us a lot to think about, a lot to discuss: the role of women in peacekeeping, the funding for peacekeeping, the mandate of the peacekeeping missions, and then the last words that were said by the minister from Guinea. He said that we should remember that there are no half human beings, that there are no half persons. Everybody is a full human being with a dignity, and that is something that we need to keep in mind as we discuss the future of peacekeeping. Now, I know that the discussion could go on forever, but we need to respect the time, and also we need to take some time to recharge our batteries, because I don't know about you, Jöran, but I could use a cup of coffee.
And it's definitely time for some refreshment. And I can assure you our staff has prepared in a 360-degree approach refreshments all around this main plenary room. You can't miss it. Wherever you go, you will find some refreshments. Even outside in the tent, you can get some refreshments. You can use the time also for networking, for bilaterals, or just enjoy the unique facilities here. We will see us back 3:30 here in the main plenary to continue with the next panel. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Enjoy your break.
ประเทศที่เป็นผู้ผลิตในที่สุด